because of you, the candidate's request, as I mentioned, we're doing something fresh and different, and I just love it because it's less of me and more of you. But we're going to I'll be the moderator today to show you just basically how easy it is. And then from this point forward, you guys can take these. But wherever I go, I try to meet people every step of the way. And I had a dream, right? So my wife kind of forced me to go on vacation. I don't do vacations well. She forced me to go on this trip. I said yes, and it's been amazing. But as soon as I knew where I was going, I tried to find somebody out here that I could actually go into their office and have a discussion with. Found that person. He's amazing. We're just not in his office. I'm in a porch overlooking what he looks at every day. And he's just like, I don't know, a few miles away. He'll tell you all about himself. But it just goes to show, like Alex, who's on these calls a lot, we were bugging him for weeks to meet pilots on his flights to and from the Virgin Islands. And he finally did it. And then he shared it on this call. Alex, by the way, just accepted and he's fully enrolled next fall at Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach because he's going to chase his dream of being a pilot. So just by breaking a shell. So I love to do that wherever I go. So got lucky, hit a home run, found the airport's director for Beaufort County, which is out here in South Carolina, and bringing him on. He's going to share his story, maybe even his elevator pitch, who knows, and then talk about his journey. And then we'll ask a couple questions, and you guys, some of you know the drill, but I'm going to pin him, make him the spotlight. And then Jon, this is brand new for us because we typically it's just about me or a couple others. This time for the rest of the show, it's all about you. I'll probably ask you a couple questions, but why don't you just go ahead and share your career journey with us?
Sure, absolutely. Pete, is that clear? Can you hear me well? Is that good?
You're awesome.
All right, perfect. Well, like Pete said, I'm the airports director for Beaufort County. So I actually am responsible for 2 different airports. So I'm sitting at my smaller airport right now. It's strictly a general aviation airport. A couple guys out flying tonight, civil air patrols, practice, things like that.
They told me, they look for progression. So if even if you feel like your GPA isn't that good right now, if you can show that you're continuing to get, just a little bit better of a GPA every quarter, then that's going to be really important to them. And it's also, whatever your story is.
And back in action.
All right, good deal. All right, so I say sometimes my primary airport is Hilton Head. And something unique about Hilton Head is we've actually got 2 designators. So, airports by airport codes, so you fly to Miami, MIA, right? And, San Francisco, SFO. Well, we're to the airlines, we're HHH, but to the FAA and TSA and everybody else, we're HXD. So we're one of very few airports that have two designators. And then my second airport is a general aviation airport, and it's called Beaufort Executive. So it's about an hour north of Hilton Head Island by driving, but it's only about a 10-minute flight. You just fly up north over Paris Island for any military folks out there. That's where we train the Marines. And then you're at Beaufort Executive. Little airport, and our designator out here is ARW, which actually has a twin designator. I think it's in Romania. I think there's an airport in Romania with ARW as a designator. So kind of fun. But I guess my journey to become an airport director is one that probably nobody would be able to guess. I started out, I went to the Naval Academy for undergrad, graduated from the academy, was commissioned into the United States Marine Corps as a ground officer, not a pilot, as a ground officer, and served as an artillery officer in active duty. And then when I came off active duty, or just before I did, I was actually stationed in Paris Island. So that's what brought me to the Low Country. And that's what we call this whole area, Pete. So if you want, the lingo there, since you visit, it's a Low Country, man. That's, you got to get into the vibe while you're here. So just relax, kick back, and enjoy the Low Country. So I got here thanks to Uncle Sam, and my wife and I just fell in love with the place. So we've got 4 natives right now who we brought up. I've got 2 girls and 2 boys, range from 19 down to 12. So we got our hands full, but it's great. This place is home. We love it. And when I got off active duty, I actually took a job with a local engineering firm. So I know Geronimo, I think you're an engineer. Some of the other ones may be studying engineering. Casper, I think, are you a grad or are you currently a student?
Currently a student.
Awesome. You're up there in Rochester. I got a brother that lives in Rochester, and actually one of my consultants is up in Rochester as well. So very familiar with that. I grew up just south of Buffalo, New York, so I know that area quite well. So it's good to see kind of a hometown guy every now and again. So, you know, I was an engineer for about a decade. I did development work locally, and to really kind of dovetail off what Pete said about soft skills and relationships, I'm telling you, everybody says how important that is. I can't stress that enough. Having the hard skills and the training are fantastic, but you can teach people those skills, but you can't teach them communication skills. You can't teach them how to relate to other people. And so when I got out of the military, I really want to get involved with my community. And so I joined the Rotary Club, and I joined the United Way Board and Chamber of Commerce Board and all that. And I got really involved in civic things, got involved in my church, and just made a ton of relationships in the broader county. And so when my 10 years at my firm kind of rolled around and it just felt like time to move on, I started looking for a job and really wanted to stay in the area. And lo and behold, I was talking with the county administrator one day because I had gotten to know him really well over the years. And I was talking to him and his deputy, and his deputy came up and said, well, you know, what do you know about airplanes? I said, well, that's a crazy question, but I used to jump out of them. You know, does that count for anything? And because I got to do some of that in the military, which was, if you haven't done it, do it. It's awesome. So I did that for a little bit anyway. So the deputy said, well, you know, we happen to have the airport director job that's open, and it's been gapped. It's been open for about a year. We can't find the right fit for that spot. And I said, well, I'll be happy to read the job description and the requirements and let you know if maybe I'd be a fit. And so I did, and I got back to him and I said, well, Brian, I have good news and bad news. And he said, okay, well, give me the good news. I said, well, the good news is I'm pretty sure I can do that job. And if you'll have me, I'll give it a shot. And he said, well, what's the bad news? That sounds pretty good. And I said, well, the bad news is I read all your requirements, the job requirements. And I said, the only thing I have is a driver's license. Off the whole list. That was it. But those were the hard skills. Okay. So going back to Pete's point, those were the hard skills, but my relationships and, you know, the relationships I built and the things that I'd done in the past to get to know folks and to have people trust me and know me as a person is what got me this job. And I'm learning how to do it. I've been doing it for 7.5 years now. And now every day is not like the first day, but it's still a little bit scary every day because you continue to learn every day of your life. But probably the thing I like most about this job is that it is constantly changing. You know, when I was talking to Pete a couple of weeks ago, I said, well, you know, let me put a couple of slides together, you know, share my screen, we'll do all that stuff. And he said, okay, that sounds good. And then today it kind of hit me. I was like, you know what? I'm not doing slides because what I want to talk to you guys about is the typical day. Because I started looking at the notes I was taking as I was going through my day, and I realized that there is no such thing as a typical day. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Because if you're an energetic person, and if you're okay with change, if you like change, I mean, it helps to kind of motivate you, then this is definitely an industry that you'll enjoy. I happen to be in the management side. I know people on the operations side. I know people in the ARF side, the aircraft rescue firefighting. I know people in the educational side who would say the same thing about it. And that happens with a lot of different career paths. My wife is an educator, now an administrator, and she says the same thing, you know? So I think a lot of that happens from the type of person that you are. It's what you bring to the table. If you bring energy, you'll feed off other people's energy as well. So, you know, I would just advise you about that too. Just get involved. You know, 2 key words: get involved. Don't sit there like a bump on a log. Don't wait for somebody to come talk to you. Go be that person who people remember. Because, you know, think about a vacation. Pete's on vacation. He's not going to remember everything that he did while he's on vacation, but you know, he's going to remember. He's going to remember how he felt while he was on vacation. And when you meet people and you make that connection, they remember how they felt when they talk to you. They may not remember what you said. You guys may not remember what I'm telling you in a couple of weeks, but you might say, hey, I remember that funny looking airport director from Hilton Head. He said something, but I liked how he said it. And maybe I'll look him up someday. You know, so that's when you make that connection, you know, that really helps. So I kind of got this job as an airport director with no airport experience. Okay, these are my first two airports, and I hope to stay here a good bit longer because I've got a lot of work to do. But what was energizing to me is that both of these airports, but particularly Hilton Head Island Airport, needed a lot of work, needed a lot of TLC, 1011 care. You know, projects had not been executed on that airport in probably the better part of 2 decades. It just wasn't being taken care of. It's like that old car that you find in the barn that's a gem, and it's all full of hay and dust and everything, and you pull the tarp off, you know, and it's like it's an old Corvette Stingray, and you just like, man, I could just fix this thing up and it'll go. And that's how I approach the airport, because coming from a civil engineering and development engineering firm, I looked at that airport and said, man, this is fertile ground if there ever was fertile ground. And from having the community experience, from being involved in the Rotary Club and being on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, I saw, and being involved with economic development, I saw what it could be. I said, man, this is Hilton Head Island. This is the #1 island in the United States 4 years running. We're going for number 5 this summer. So Pete, make sure you cast your vote. And that right there, I mean, that's the marketing piece, right? So how lucky could I be to shepherd an airport that's on Hilton Head Island? I mean, we've got strong competition in Charleston, just north of us. They're big. And then Savannah, just to the south of us, which isn't huge, but they're pretty powerful. Great leaders at both airports. I know both of them and work with them all the time. But Hilton Head Island just had potential. And so we worked through some pretty tough projects. I have an awesome consultant team. So you guys who are in the engineering track or who are interested in, you know, airport planning, environmental, anything like that, you are going to be key members, absolutely key members of airport development, because you're going to know the ins and outs as how to get things done. You know, I'm the guy who's got my foot on the gas pedal, and I'm saying we got to go get these projects done. But I got a whole slew of smart guys behind me who can get it done for me. So, you know, Geronimo, Casper, you guys who are working engineering and things like that, you are absolutely critical to the foundation of building these airports. So keep doing what you're doing. But if you're interested in management, I'd be happy to talk to you sometime. So we just got going on projects. And if you've ever been to a big airport, you probably will notice, or hopefully will next time you go, there's always a portion of the airport that's under construction. It's either in the terminal or it's somewhere on the ramp or it's a runway. Something is being built on an airport. And that only happens with some momentum. Okay. So you get that first project going, you get the juices flowing, the energy going, some people behind you, and those projects will never stop. We're in design as I came on board as a director, and we quickly moved into construction, and I just kept going. And we've had more grants from the FAA, and we've expended more dollars on that airport than had ever been expended ever in the history of the airport. We did it in the last 3 years. I mean, we spent over $60 million on that airport in 3 years. That had never been done. I mean, it's punching way above our weight class. You know, we're not in Atlanta, we're not, you know, Charlotte. We feed both of those airports, but we're not that big. So 60 million is a big number for us. We've got a lot more coming. We're about to do a $50 million terminal project. So you know, it's incredible what we're going to build there, but it's to serve the customers. There's a huge demand. There's a lot of people doing what Pete's doing, you know, flying in, enjoying the place, but also we're making options for the people who live here. You may not know a lot about the demographics of Hilton Head Island, but it is a big retirement community. So a lot of folks will go out and, you know, make their careers elsewhere. We get a lot of folks from the Midwest and the Northeast who retire in Hilton Head Island. but they've got connections back home. You know, they have grandkids that they want to see, or they want to come visit them, or whatever. They may still run a business somewhere else. We have a lot of people, believe it or not, who commute weekly to DC and New York to work from Hilton Head Island. Isn't that great? They'll be in Hilton Head Island from like Thursday night till Monday morning, and then they jet out to DC or to New York, and they work for 3.5, 4 days, and then they come home back to where Pete's sitting right now. So it's a pretty good deal. So we're trying to set up those options for those folks. And I'll tell you just a real quick little bit of kind of what we did commercial airlines wise. When I came in, we had just a single airline. At that time, it was US Airways Express, if you remember US Airways. And then in 2013, 14, 15, they merged with American. So now it's just American Airlines. That was our single carrier. That was it. We had American Airlines flying the old, what people refer to as the puddle jumpers, the old turboprop aircraft that had about 35, 40 seats in them. And they would putter their way off to Charlotte. And that was our only city. We had 3 flights a day. In fact, when I first started, we had about 9 flights a day. But they started retiring those airplanes because they were old. And so they started reducing flights and reducing flights. Those airplanes did not have GPS on them. So if it got cloudy, if we got a marine layer of fog that came over the island or something like that, anybody on the West Coast, you're probably familiar with that marine layer that comes over, you know, LA and San Diego. We get that sometimes at Hilton Head. That would shut our airport down. Those old Dash 8 turboprops couldn't come in. They couldn't see. And if they couldn't see, their instrumentation would not allow them to come in. So we lose all those flights. And it was so frustrating to have people in the terminal who would hear that announcement of the loudspeaker that the airplane couldn't get in, and they're going to have to get in a van and go to Savannah. And I said, we cannot do this anymore. And so we started executing projects, and it was fun. I mean, it's invigorating to finally, you know, get some things going on the airport. And, you know, long story short, we finished a runway extension and we finished that on June 30th of 2018. On July 4th of that same year, you can count the days, it's 5, American retired their last Dash 8. There was no longer an airplane in the fleet that could fly to our airport. But so we had 5 days to spare before American transitioned to the regional jets. So on July the 5th, in the morning of July the 5th, we welcomed the very first Embraer 175 into Hilton Head Island. First commercial jet ever. It was an absolutely, you know, just goosebumps, you know, celebrating kind of, it was awesome. We had the whole water arch going with the fire trucks and everything. And it was just incredible. And that was like the Oklahoma land rush, because we, very shortly after that, United called me up and said, hey, we had been doing some planning meetings and stuff. And they called me up one day and said, hey, by the way, we're going to launch service to 3 hubs. I said, holy smokes, we're flying jets to Charlotte right now, and you're going to bring me 3. So we went from 1 city to 4 cities, just like that. And then Delta was planning on coming to us the following year, which would have been last year. So around Christmas time of 2018, Delta called me up and said, hey, we're going to bring year-round service to Atlanta, and we're going to start a year early. So they started in May of 2019. So within a year of opening the runway, we went from 1 airline flying to 1 city to 3 airlines flying to 5 cities. It was incredible. And so the numbers, of course, were looking great. And it was just going leaps and bounds. And then American started adding some more flights to Charlotte, and then they added Philadelphia, then they added Dallas, and then they added Chicago, and let's see, who else did they add? They brought back Reagan National, which was a huge one for our folks going to DC. And then, you know, it just continued to build. 2019 was a great season. 2020, obviously, not so good for a while there, you know. But we rebuilt pretty quickly. Hilton Head did pretty well, probably because it's a destination. And when the international travel was shut down, people did what Pete did, and they said, hey, we're going to Hilton Head. So we had a lot of people come in last summer. And then United they're only seasonal with us. So they came back in for their seasonal service, and they announced their seasonal service this year to the 3 hubs that they did. They were doing Chicago, Dulles, and Newark. And then they brought in 6 more cities to us. They brought point-to-point flying to some of the Midwest cities, which were absolutely key connections for us. And so We went from in 26 months ago, okay, just over 2 years ago, we were a single city, single airline airport. Now we're all 3 major carriers flying to 16 cities, with 4 of those cities being served by 2 airlines. I mean, it's incredible. Went from 3 flights a day to 24 flights a day. I mean, we're busting it, which is why we're doing the $50 million terminal project that we can't do fast enough. So there's just so much going on. But I tell you all that to go back to the very beginning, that relationships, energy, have fun with it, create that momentum, and then just go, just manage that energy. It gets really, really hectic, and it can get pretty scary sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes you kind of sit there and think, how in the world am I going to get all this stuff done? But you hire some good help. You learn how to do that pretty quickly, and you team up and you get things done. You just knock them down, and the successes are great. And it's kind of like playing a round of golf. If you're pretty bad like I am, and you end up with a decent shot on the 18th hole, you say, oh, it's so bad, maybe I'll do that again. Even though you have no business being out there. And that's kind of the way it is in life too. You're going to get, and I tell my kids this because my kids, are 19, 17, 15, and 12. So certainly the oldest 3 need to hear this all the time, that you're going to get knocked down in life more than you're picked up by someone else. Okay. You got to pick yourself up. That's what it's about. And that's a measure of a strong person, is not only can you pick yourself up, but how do you pick yourself up? Can you pick yourself up and still smile about it? Can you dust it off? Man, I'm telling you, if you get into the airport business, you will have a target on your back, because it is a lightning rod kind of business. You're going to be loved by people, and you're going to be hated by people. And there'll be a few people in the middle who are kind of lukewarm, but it's pretty polarizing, because think about it. You're introducing airplanes that are flying over people's homes. So I got a crowd on Hilton Head who retired from places where they lived in the airport. They lived on airplanes. That was how they made their millions. And they retired to Hilton Head so they didn't have to deal with airports anymore. So much for that. I built an airport, and here we go. My team did a great job. Now we have all these flights. And now all those people are calling me saying, hey, Jon, come on, man. I retired from New Jersey. I don't want airplanes flying over my house anymore. And it kind of is what it is. I mean, there's other people who want to fly in and out of Hilton Head on a nonstop. So that's what we do. So you're going to make some friends. You're going to make some enemies. But again, if you are honest, if you're a person of character, if you do what you say you're going to do, if you don't mince words, if you don't always try to tell people what they want to hear, but you tell them what they need to hear, then, like Mark Twain said, if you never tell a lie, you don't have to remember what you said. Okay? Because what you said was the truth. That's the way it works. And that goes across any industry. That's life advice from an old guy. If you conduct yourself that way, then even if people don't like what you do, if they don't like your job necessarily, they'll respect you. They'll at least trust that you're looking out for the overall best interest. And that's really important, because if you get seen as somebody who's making side deals and trying to fluff yourself up so someday they name the terminal after you, it's not going to go well, and you're going to have to retire someplace else. So, I guess that's a little pearl of wisdom you can take with you as well. So I've been spouting on for a long time, so I better be quiet, because Pete, I should have told you I have the gift of gab here, but I'm going to stop and let you guys engage with some questions.
Jon, that was amazing. Like, you dropped so much stuff. I don't even know where to start. And where I thought I was going to ask you about relationship management. Then you decided to retool and go back to relationship management. And so this is perfect. Awesome. We ask our guests to always share their elevator pitch, their why, their journey, but you took it to a new level. If you guys are hiring, I'm a horse racing major. I'm fresh. I don't know anything about airport operations, but man, I can get in there and do it. But realistically, I know you talked about relationship management, and I know airports well enough that stuff doesn't just happen. They're not just going to call you and say, bring in more airlines. You have a scheduling crew. You've got other members of the airport operations staff that do so much amazing stuff to make all this happen. We have a couple candidates on this call who want to pursue careers in airport or even aviation operations. Do you have any gems for them to consider not necessarily classes to take because they're in college, but just paint a broader picture about airport operations and its importance for you?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I do need to tell you, we're a small airport. So my entire staff is 15 people. That's everybody. That includes my shift workers. So I don't have 15 on at all times. I have 11. At any given time, I have 11 people on my staff working. So I don't have, a big planning department. I don't have a planning department at all. I've got a kind of a headquarters unit that's basically myself, an admin assistant, a business manager, and a deputy director. The business manager and deputy director I just hired. So it was me and an admin assistant for the most part for about 6.5 years. And then on the operations side, my firefighters, the ARF guys, they are ARF/operations. So at a small airport, you'll typically find that. You'll find the ARF guys as kind of taking on the operations as well. And so we work 2-person teams with ARF. And they're 24/7. They're there every single day of the year. And so on the operations side, my operations is different than an airline's operations. Okay, because airline operations is going to deal with, from the airline side, they're dealing with moving those airplanes around and making sure that they've got the right ground crews, that they're contracted. In the case of a small airport like ours, they contract with companies to do their ground handling. Excuse me. So they'll make sure that they've got all those bases covered and that their logistics at the terminal and on the ramp are squared away and that their folks are being taken care of. And most importantly, the airplanes are being taken care of because they don't need anything bumping into airplanes and things like that. So they'll get involved in the management of some of the ground support equipment, the carts, the tugs, the air stairs, the de-icing equipment, that sort of thing. They'll deal with some of that at a small airport. But my operations staff are mostly involved in the Part 139 operations. So if you're familiar with commercial service airport like ours, FAR Part 139 is the certification that we've got at the airport, and there's very stringent requirements that you have to maintain in order to keep that certification up. And so my ops guys are mostly involved with making sure that all the training is done for that, because we do get inspected every year, and it can be more than that, but at least once a year you get inspected by the FAA. And they look at all your training records and make sure everybody's got the classes and the refresher training that they need. And for my guys, it happens to be firefighting and operations. But then they're also in charge of the airfield. So they have to make certain inspections on the airfield, and it's everything from making sure all the airfield lighting works. So they have to do daytime inspections, nighttime inspections. We happen to have an EMAS at each end of the airfield. So I don't know how many people are familiar with EMAS, but it's Engineered Materials Arresting System. If you haven't looked it up, check it out. There's some awesome videos on it. It's pretty cool. We happen to have one at both ends. So that's got a whole inspection package that goes with it. So my folks are responsible for inspecting that as well. But one of the crazy things is with the Part 139 inspections, the airfield you have to be careful of ruts and erosion and all kinds of stuff like that on the airfield, because depending on what kind of soil you have, that can be very difficult to manage. We happen to be in a very, very sandy environment. And so just when we perform the field maintenance on the airfield, mowing the grass and stuff like that, sometimes our machines make ruts that are big enough, which is the maximum is 3 inches. If you have more than a 3-inch rut, then you can get, hit on an inspection. So we'll mow the airfield and then have to go out and inspect the airfield and make sure we, rake the sand over and stuff like that. So, that's kind of what my operations guys do. That's really, really in a nutshell. I mean, it's a kind of a broad brush over what they do, but so we're a pretty small crew.
You say you're small, but do you have opportunities for internships, or do you see any of those happening in the future?
Yeah, I would love to do that. We actually had some high school interns in this year over with my firefighting guys, because a couple of local high schools who actually have firefighting. They actually get certified as firefighter 1 during their senior year. So some of those folks came over, and I think we had about 7 high school students who came over this spring semester, and they spent a couple hours a day with my ARF guys. So they got to go and you know, it's not just the firefighting they do. They got to hang out and do some operation stuff as well. So they got to, you know, go inside the commercial aircraft and some of the private aircraft to just take a look at, if something were to happen with those aircraft, what are the ARF guys going to do? How do they respond? So
question, and Casper threw this one out last week, so I'm going to copy him. But if you guys are recruiting, let's say you're recruiting Andrew, can you tell me your why Andrew should pick, if he's choosing between you and another airport, why he should choose you guys over somebody else? What is your why?
I'd say the biggest why at our airport is that, number one, we are a team. We're a family who loves each other. We all take care of each other. We're very honest with each other. And I'm the kind of leader who, basically what I do is I'm going to show you where the ditches are on either side of the road. And as long as you keep that thing on the pavement, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to get you going in the right direction and have at it, man. You're going to be able to go. So if there's somebody who's got initiative, you know, who's willing to take some chances like that within some boundaries that I can set up that are, you know, kind of my responsibility to manage, I'm going to let you go and have fun.
All right. I like that. Okay. Any questions from anybody? So now's the time. Not,
Pete, there were a couple in the chat you may want to look at.
He answered one of them.
Yep, the 139.
Yeah. So is Hilton Head Airport, is there, Breeze Airways is planning to commence. This is from Chandra. Chandra, what are you after, buddy?
Yeah. Breeze Airways is going to commence operations soon, right? So if the Hilton Head Airport is in the radar of Breeze Airways, are they planning to commence operations in Hilton Head as well?
That's a good question. Breeze, I've got to look at their fleet mix again. I think that their airplanes are actually a little bit too big for our field.
190s and 195s currently, and probably they're going to get A220s in the future.
They're going to be just a little bit too big for us right now. We're up to the 175 is the biggest Embraer that we can take right now. So they're a little bit large. But yeah, they're an interesting operation. I think they're shaking stuff up right now coming out of COVID too. So it's pretty fun to watch that happening.
They're just planning to operate in smaller airports. They just don't want the direct competition from any of the big carriers. So I guess I thought it would be a good fit for Hilton Airport to choose Breeze Airways, but the runways are not capable, right? Is it a problem?
We're at 5,000 feet right now, so we're probably just a little bit short for those guys.
Also, are you doing any active projects right now in the airport?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Any active projects in the airport right now?
Any active projects? We've got a couple in design right now. So we just finished some of the runway work and we're designing a ramp expansion, a significant expansion of the commercial ramp, and then the terminal project as well. And that's kind of that'll be after the runway extension we did. That's going to be kind of the signature project for us.
Oh, nice.
Perfect, man. And I know writing grants is no fun. But to win those FAA grants, you've got to put a little elbow grease. So good for you. I'm sure you didn't know how to do that before, but you do now. So this is amazing. John, we'll close this out, and I'm going to go back to relationship management. We're members of the National Business Aviation Association. So that's how I found you. I know I was going to Hilton Head, and I'm just going to go to MBAA because we do a lot with MBAA. We'll be at the convention in Vegas. So I just looked up MBAA, who's in Hilton Head. You popped up, and I truly appreciate you answering the call because it was a shot in the dark. You know, we throw a lot of curveballs and we swing and we hope we hit them. And you certainly did that for us. So I truly appreciate it. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about pathways to aviation, and more importantly, the type of talent that we bring to our workshops and that we're working with on a regular basis, so that when you're hiring, whether it's for an internship or part or a full-time job, you know where to go to find the talent. They're right here and they're amazing. And we have some who are ready right now and some who will take a couple of years. And this has just been amazing. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll tell you just one really quick story. When I was trying to hire my deputy director, who I desperately needed, I went through kind of the normal searches through AAAE and a couple of industry organizations like that. And no slight to them, but I probably got about 60 or 65 applications through them. I didn't hire, none of them were what I needed. So Pete, what you guys are doing here and really getting people dialed in to the specifics and to what an airport really needs or what the industry really needs. It's so important that you're doing this, because what you're fine tuning your candidates for the real deal. They're not just going to be paper resumes. You're getting real people out there, and that's incredibly important. So the value that you're adding is huge. If I can help out in some small way at some point, just feel free to reach out.
Jon, I truly appreciate it. If you go to Vegas, we'll be there. But there's a chance I'm back here before then, and I'll definitely be knocking on your door now that I know where you're at, what you look like, and all that. So thank you for allowing me to come into your home for a few days. This is amazing, and I'll be back. And that's all we have for you. We can close the show out now. Truly appreciate your time and your words of encouragement and insight. They're totally invaluable. So thank you very much.